Hey, welcome back to the garage, everyone. My name is Mike, and this is my 73 Mercedes 450 SL. We found this thing in a barn last year, and well, I just couldn't resist it. Hauled her back home, and restoration began, and now we are ready to start putting our little 4.5 liter engine back together. We're going to take care of some of that during this video, but we're also going to finish up the rear end in this video so that we can move on with the rest of our project. You guys stick around, you won't want to miss it. So today, I think I'm going to try to finish up, or maybe today, possibly tomorrow. It might take a week. I don't know. I'm going to try to finish up the fuel system, and that means routing the fuel line, the fuel supply line, and the return line. There are some really eccentric things to note about the fuel system on this old R107, and let's get into that right away. Okay, so this, laying on the ground here, is the fuel system from the rear to the front of the car. Now, this line right here is the main supply line. You can see it's got a hose here, and it goes to the fuel filter. Okay, and this is on the passenger side, so more appropriately, we would move it like that, so the car's up there, right? This line, let's see, get some perspective here. There we go. That line right there goes to the front of the car, and it goes up through that channel right there. There's a cover that covers all that stuff up. And it bends up, comes through here, comes through this bracket right here, comes along here, kind of juts over this way, goes through that bracket, which you saw me fiddle with in the last video, and basically stops. And then that rubber hose kind of loops around here and connects to your fuel filter. This hose right over here on the left follows the same path, okay? But it comes up here like this. Instead of going over there, it goes to a soft line and connects to that fuel return right there, which goes into the bottom of the tank. And then there's a separate line inside the tank that siphons the fuel upward and drips it down. So it's not like when you fill the tank, the fuel is going to come out right there. Now, all of that is pretty standard stuff. There is one really odd thing about the fuel system on this R107 that I wanted to highlight, however. So you may or may not know, in the mid-70s, and this includes Mercedes, 74, 75, 76, depending on the maker, pretty much everybody started implementing charcoal canisters in the engine bay to store gasoline fumes. The way this thing worked was typically a vacuum would be placed on the charcoal canister, and then when you turn the car off, that stored vacuum would draw fumes out of the intake manifold, or draw them, away from the carburetor, or draw them up from the fuel tank. And those fumes would sit in the charcoal canister. They would not vent to the atmosphere, and your car didn't smell like gasoline anymore. Actually, a pretty good idea. There's nothing wrong with it. However, there was a gasoline fume retention mechanism on this early R107, and it was a little weird. That's for sure. So earlier in the video series on this car, you probably heard me talk about this weird line that was connected to the front timing cover. It was a plastic flexible line. It was a plastic flexible line. Just imagine the engine being right here, timing cover being about there. And that line went over here, ran along the fender, went over there, ran along here, and went underneath here, all the way to the back of the car, along with the other fuel lines. As a matter of fact, here it is right here. This is a flexible plastic gas fume retention line for emissions, okay? You can see that it goes back, and it goes to a flexi hose that has been broken over time, and it cycles back around, and it connects to this right here. Here is where it went, right here, okay? And this goes up through the floor and goes up to another vent on top of the fuel tank. You ask yourself, why in the hell would a gasoline fume line be connected to the front timing cover? The answer is they wanted to have a gas fume retention location, but they didn't have one because they had not implemented the charcoal canister as of yet. Where did they put the fumes? In the crankcase. I read this in the service manual a short while ago because I was trying to figure out what in the hell this flexible black line was for. And when I read that, I nearly fell off of my chair. So basically what you're telling me is that the gasoline fumes that get vented off from the tank are going to end up in the crankcase of the engine. Now, I assume that they are counting on the crankcase ventilation system, the positive crankcase ventilation, right, PCV. They're going to count on that PCV to draw those gases up out of the crankcase and burn them in the intake, just like every other PCV system that's on every other make and model of car. But instead of it simply being, just effervescence and fumes and a little bit of oil and things like that, it's gasoline fumes. So you're cycling or filtering gasoline fumes through the engine oil and then burning it in the intake. In essence, thinning the oil. I suppose the engineers of the day thought that, wow, this is a really clever idea because we figured out on this piece of paper here with all these equations that we will not be thinning the oil. It will have no effect on the longevity of the engine whatsoever. You believe that? I don't. Good thing I took this motor to the machine shop and had them go through it and put new rings and all that kind of stuff in it. Bearings and all that kind of stuff. Guess what system is not going back into this car? This gas fume retention line. Matter of fact, I was trying to figure out what in the world this gizmo was right here. This is the gas fume. Basically, it's like a switch. It kind of makes a decision on pressure gets up to a certain amount. It sends, fumes here and there. Sometimes it'll send them to the front of the car or send them to the tank and so on and so forth. You can see where it's got these diaphragms and it's got the Gazenta and it got the Gazalta, or that might be vice versa. And this little gizmo was mounted right in here. Okay, you can see, let's see, it's pretty dirty. I don't want to put it on my clean car now. Let's see, where are my screw holes at? I guess it went kind of like that. So that went to the front of the car, and this guy here probably went over there and to the gas tank. However, this will retain a place in the plastic bag for the rest of its days. The only reason that system is in this car, I'm assuming, is because the United States changed their emission laws and they had to comply with them, okay? And they just maybe they didn't have a suitable charcoal canister solution at that time. By contrast, in the American market, cars like this Cadillac already had the charcoal canister system set up, and this is a 71 model. So there you go, a little bit of eccentric engineering from Mercedes' part. And so anyway, enough of that. I'm going to go ahead and start bending up some fuel lines. So let's do that next. All right, I guess first thing I'm going to do here is start bending up these fuel lines. I need to find out if this has got a little crimp in it to hold this rubber hose. I'm assuming it does. I started to remove the clamp a moment ago, and I can't find it now because it disintegrated. Yeah, got a little bump there to hold the hose, a little expansion crimp. I don't know what you call that. I got to figure out how to make it. I know that. Let me ponder on that for a minute. It'd probably be best to do it down here instead of up in the car, so yeah. All right, little update. We've got the fuel supply line run and connected to the fuel filter there. Got some 5/16 fuel injection rated hose from O'Reilly. And I connected it up similar to what the factory did back in the day. I manufactured a new little extension piece of metal here. The one that came on the car was so rusted up and nasty. Anyway, so I just cut a new piece of steel here and painted it up and bolted it on. And this is the original styrofoam that came with the car. I just got it tie wrapped up there. It doesn't look great, but it's, you know, it'll stay in place. And put another extra little piece of heater hose right here to protect the fuel line from the rubbing up against the side of the spare tire well. And this is loose enough, that's not going to be rubbing on that. And on the supply line where the hard line meets the rubber, I did put a hose barb in the end of the hard line. Just used a flaring tool, but you basically you just use step one and only go about 30%. It'll actually make a little barb on the end of the hard line, so that when you put your rubber line on, it'll stay in place. I went ahead and put 2 clamps on it anyway, so it should be fine. And the hard line, the supply line, is run here. That clamp right there is not affixed tightly because I still have to do the return line, and this thing goes down underneath the car. I've got that clamp there, got that one there, got that one there, and I got plenty of hard line here dangling, because I'll have to take this up and go like that and blah blah blah, and it comes up and it basically stops right about there and points kind of that way towards the engine, and you connect a piece of rubber to it. Yeah, it's not the straightest thing in the world, but you know, it's readily affixed to the car. You know, the factory lines were made by a machine, I'm assuming, and well, I have no way to make it, you know, that straight, so it is what it is, and nobody's going to see it. All right, a little something different. We are going to start working on some things closer to the front of the car, and so yeah, that means we're going to start getting into some engine action, and which, you know, it's about time, don't you think? So anyway, this is the oil pump from the M117, and there's just lots of things in here, and why I didn't put a glove on my left hand, I have no idea. This is the pump right here. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but we're going to find out. We're going to take it apart and clean it up, make sure everything works properly. And I watched Peter, my friend Peter out in Kansas. I watched his video on, he had a tear down of one of these pumps. It was from a later model. This is a 116-180-0555. 116-180-0555. It's an early style pump, I'm assuming, for this engine. And we got the chain here. Supposedly there's not a way to prime these engines, but I'm going to figure out a way, because I don't want to fire my motor unless I prime the engine. These are the mounting bolts and some kind of a little strap that came with it. I hear a little play in there. I'm not sure if that's normal. I hear a little. You hear that? That's kind of interesting. Looks like a 13. So let's take that off, see how well we do. Let's see if we can do this without tearing ourselves up here. Let's put it on low. Ow, nope, it's not gonna work. And I've got it very lightly. There we go. I'm just trying to keep from breaking stuff. I'm trying to be very gentle. It's a very old oil pump, and I don't want to break it. So there's a roll pin there. Looks like a roll pin down in there. That should just tap off, in my mind. Like that. Yeah, how about that? There's a pin down in there. You don't want to lose that. I don't know if that comes out or not. No, that's a roll pin. It is steadfastly affixed. Okay. Now it looks like 10 millimeter on the bolts there. So let's take those off next. Well, I reckon one good thing about it being an oil pump, it ain't rusty. If it was rusty, we'd be in a bad shape. Alright, there we go. Take that apart. Pretty typical oil pump down in there. Looks like every other oil pump I've ever pulled apart. This is just purely, well, not purely academic, but it's partly academic and partly me wanting to ensure that this pump is going to be good to go. I don't see any deep scoring. Yeah, I think it's, you know, it looks perfectly fine to me. I mean, it's got 105,000 miles on it. And this part right here meets up with, that's where the sprocket goes. So you can't get that backwards. Let's see, how does that come out of there? I don't reckon. There we go. Same story. I mean, you can see a little wear on it. It's nothing I can feel. A little discoloration right there. I'm not sure what that's about. Probably nothing a little 2000 grit sandpaper can't take care of, I don't imagine. Or just not worry about it. The inside is very smooth. I don't see any imperfections, damage, anything like that. Thought there was a regulator in here some kind of way. That's the strainer and that's the pickup. That's all there is to that right there. I was watching Peter. Work on his, and his pickup looked very different than this earlier style. I'm very curious to see if there was any debris in the old pickup screen down in there. I don't want to break it. I'm not sure how that comes out. Probably just scared if I yank it, it'll tear it, you know. Yeah, I really don't want to mess with it. It's actually really pliable. I'm going to leave it alone. What I could probably do, we could backflow it and just see if anything comes out. I didn't see any bits of plastic or metal, anything like that. I think it's good to go, really. I don't think we're going to need to do anything to this except clean it up and run it. Well, that was pretty uneventful, I do believe. Looks fine to me. I can't find any issues with it whatsoever. What is this part number right here? 116 180 0502 on that casing right there. So yeah, early style oil pump, M117 from this early 73. Keep in mind, this is an early 73. It's more like the 72, really. They made a lot of changes around in the 73 time frame. A tremendous amount of changes were made in these cars, almost on a weekly basis, I would think. So yeah, I think up next, really, all I'm going to do is clean this up in some mineral spirits and get it spick and span, slab it back together. All right, I think we can finally finish up the suspension in the rear of this R107, and we got the anti-roll bar bushings in finally. And I saw these for sale at Niemoller and a couple of other places. And yeah, part number 116 326 08 M117, and this is what they look like. All right? It is an oddball looking critter for sure. 18 bucks a piece from ECS Tuning. ECS Tuning is a good company, by the way. Just excellent service. And turns out this is a genuine, according to their website, this is a genuine Mercedes part. And I'm assuming they had to come from Europe somewhere, or Germany, because it took like 2.5 weeks for them to arrive. So I could have ordered them from Niemöller. It probably would have cost me 60 or 70 by the time I paid the import duties. But I ordered them from ESC Tuning. They were $43 total cost for the bushings and the shipping. And they go right up here. And slowly but surely, I just can't seem to finish the rear end of this old R107. So that is split right there. All right, I had to use 2 hands there to get that nestled up into place. Get those little nipples in the right little place, because you can see where they go, right? Kind of a weird little bushing. All right, we had one casualty. Had to pull that old bolt out of there for whatever reason. There was something in there, and the threads got destroyed, so I had to remove the old bolt and run a 12 by 1.5 tap up in there, and I went and found a new bolt. So we're not going to go crazy with the tightening. Still got pretty good threads. Easy does it. Only problem is the new bolt has a different head size on it. Good to go. So yeah, it's good to have spare 12 by 1.5 bolts laying around. All right, another little update here. I've got the return line all done. You can see it is right there. Has a nice little piece of rubber hose connecting the hard line with the return on the bottom of the fuel tank. And we've got it cinched down with a bracket there. You'll note there is an empty hole. That was where the vapor line went. I'm not going to reinstall that. So we've got this bracket here, and that mounting bracket there, and that one right there. We got the rest of the fuel lines dangling up here, and I'm going to save this for a little later on to make this fuel line kind of meander around that way and terminate up there. But the remainder of the rear end. Remainder of the rear end? Is that a thing? I don't know. Anyway, I got all the clamps on this thing. I got that hose back in there now after I had the tank removed. All this is buttoned up, and the only thing I have left to do back here is, put some gear oil in our differential. And I decided to try the Valvoline fluid in the little squeezy bag, because, well, it's pretty tight up in there. So you can't really pour it. Otherwise, I've got a pump, but I was going to use that on the Corvette. I didn't want to put this through that. Anyway, you get it. This flexible container, well, I think this will serve us well. So up next, let's give this a shot. I only bought 1 quart to see how this goes, and if I need more, I'll go back and get another one. But all right, well, let's give this a shot. Get some oil in our diff. Pretty tight quarters up here. It's a 14 millimeter, so I brutally sacrificed yet another cheap Harbor Freight tool, and I lopped off the 14 millimeter hex head socket thing, and that's how we broke our little fill plug loose. Now, if you were going to do this, under normal maintenance, you wouldn't want to remove the fuel line, clearly, albeit removing the fuel line would in fact make this much easier. Anyway, but we're not going to do that, so I had to get something in there that would work. Handy little tool right there. So I think right now we'll just kind of, let's see how well we do here. Don't know what I'm doing. Never done this. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Ooh. Squeeze. We're squeezing. We're squeezing. Seems to be working pretty well. At some point I'm going to want to turn this upside down, I think. I did spill some. I want to make sure that nothing's leaking here. I just love the smell of gear oil. Nope, it is nasty beyond belief. Let's see how well we're doing here. Yeah, I can feel it. I guess we just fill it up until it runs out. Probably gonna need some more. More than 1 quart, I would imagine. All right, I'm gonna try to come in from the top. See how well we do with that. Now that I've got some out of the bag here, I'm gonna take this bag and shove it up in that hole up in there. I could probably just, you know, leave it alone and just kind of let it drain like this. Yeah, I'll let that drain for a little while, then I'll come back and check it. All right, we got everything cleaned up now. Got it all. I put it in bags with oil, so it's probably overkill, but I just wanted everything to be, you know, to remember its place in the world. It's like, oh yeah, I'm an oil pump. I'm supposed to have oil all in the air and all over the place and all that kind of thing, you know. And let's go ahead and put the oil pump body together now. The oil pump body was held together with these, I think these are M5s, might be M6, doesn't matter. Anyway, no, they're M6. But they had nylock nuts on them. You know, I suppose I could go find some new nylock nuts, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go just use regular nuts and regular lock washers, and that'll be fine. It seems to be doing the pumping thing. Now let's grab the other part of the pump body. It certainly does look nicer than it did before. There we go. Now let's see, which side had the bolt head and which side had the nut side? I can't remember. All he's got to go do is look at the video he just made. Oh yeah, let's go do that. All right, let's go ahead and get these bolts in the main housing. Boy, that looks a lot better than it did. That's for sure. Well, I don't know what the torque setting is on this. Can't be all that much. Might be in the book. We'll just get them snug down here real quick. Drop our tools in the dirt. All right, main housing is bolted up. Let's go ahead and put our chain sprocket on next. All right, looked up on the internet and used Mr. AI to figure out if there was a torque setting for these bolts here. It came up with about 6 to 8 foot-pounds. That was what I got off the Google Gemini thing. I don't recall if I saw it documented in the service manual or not, but that's an M6 bolt. I hand did it with this first, and then I went back with my inch pound, and it's at least 7 foot-pounds, and I know I went a little more with a smaller wrench, so it's probably 9 or 10 foot-pounds, something like that. So the original washer this thing came with was a spring-loaded one. It goes like that. I'm going to put one of these star washers on it because it's brand new, and well, that's what they hold the timing sprocket on the Cadillac with, and so, you know, for this should be fine. Anyway, also I'm going to run some thread locker on this bolt too, so let's got a drop of that on there. That should do it quite well, and this shouldn't. I mean, you're going into some aluminum. Actually, you're going into that steel teeth in there. Actually, I take that back. So I'm going to snug that down a little bit. I'm going to get online and see if I can't find a torque setting for that, so I'll be right back. According to this, it's 22 to 26 foot-pounds. I don't believe that. I have a hard time believing that. Always be skeptical. All right, looked in the service manual. Torque rating on this is 30 Newton meters. Multiply that times 0.7376 to get your foot-pounds. That's 22 foot-pounds. So, there we go. We're going to have to sneak up on it. I must be compressing that star washer. I'm approaching this very, very cautiously. All right, see if I can't keep this thing from turning. I got a screwdriver in that one tooth there. Let's see how much that is. That just doesn't feel right. All right, I got it up to about 10 foot-pounds. What is that? That's 145. 20 is 240 on this inch-pound doohickey. There's 160, 175. I guess do it. It needs to be done quickly as opposed to easing into it. You won't ever feel the brake if you don't do it. Anyway, I'm just being cautious, people. Leave me alone. All right, that's 190. 205, and she's breaking out. Got to use our screwdriver stop here. There we go. And let's go to 220. That's 240. All right, that's 250. I'm not going to push my luck. I got thread locker inside there. And I got a brand new star washer on there, so I think that will be perfectly fine. If it's not, what's the worst that could happen? The engine would blow up. And then I'd buy another engine and put in it, and that'd be fun too, wouldn't it? That'd be a good video. Pumpity, 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 said the little pump. All right, let's go ahead and start working on some heads. I want to lap the valves. That's what I want to do. So over here, off to the side, I've got all the engine valves, intake and exhaust marked. Exhaust there, intake there, passenger side, driver's side, front, rear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the way they go on this engine. And I want to lap these valves in, which means basically just cleaning up the valve seats here where they sit. And I've got some fine metal grinding compound, and I've got some coarse. I don't think I'm going to need the coarse. Let's see, this is made by VersaChem, and it doesn't take a whole lot of that stuff. I had thought that I might possibly want to use the drill. I did it on the Cadillac using just the old-fashioned, you know that thing. Why couldn't we not speed things up? I don't know. Let's see here. You don't want to chuck it hard. Just very lightly is all you would need. And then you wouldn't spin it fast, and you would kind of spin it slow and then kind of give it that, right? You wouldn't turn the drill on and just simply go, and leave it there against the seat. You wouldn't do that. Before I put the valve in there, though, I'm going to get some oil down in the, what do you even call it? That place where the valve goes. What's that called? We could probably just get away with not doing this at all. Really. These valve guides. Valve guides. All I feel is nice fluid movement with no side-to-side play at all. We could probably just put these together and just not worry about it. But we'll see how it goes. There is a little pitting on this one. You can see it right in there. So let's see if we can't make that perfectly smooth. You don't want to get this mess down inside the valve guide, however. You'll just ruin it, and you have to reinstall. You have to install new valve guides, and you don't want that. Let's see how well we do. If I don't like this process, I'll switch up and do it the other way. The head stands up better on the front. So I'm going to grab the valve ever so gently. right, let's see how well we did. Not entirely sure that's easier than the other way. Ooh, that's pretty. All right, not sure if you can see that, but you see right there where that valve seat is nice and gray and uniform and not pitted. That is exactly what we want. And let's take a look at the valve here. Now you can see this, you can see that gray line going around it where the valve seat is. And you can see, however, if you see on this valve here, you see it does have some corrosion pits in it, where the, you know, but only this gray line here clearly is where it sits on the valve seat. I'm not going to do anything about these pits. I'm going to leave them in there. I would imagine there's cars running down the road with far worse conditions, so yeah. What is that, YYZ? Yeah. Love me some Rush. All right, that's done. How about that? Okay, look, so that's the basic process. I'm not going to sit here and, you know, make you watch the whole, you know, thing. That's would be quite boring, actually. So, yeah. But I'm going to get busy now, so I'll be back. Got all the valves done on both the heads, and went ahead and cleaned up the business end here, and you know, with just a little bit of Scotch-Brite and some 2000 grit paper, and there's a little bit of corrosion right here, but it's, you know, it's not near the chamber, so the machine shop guy, he said that shouldn't cause an issue really. And we got all our valves lapped, obviously. So on this head, you may recall that I had started removing these water jacket core plugs here. There's 4 of them. Now this one right here I couldn't get out, and I had to ask the machine shop for help because I screwed it up. And I mangled it pretty good, and he was able to get it out of there and save most of the threads. However, good luck finding these things anywhere. I looked all over the place. So I came up with this. This one is exactly like the aluminum one, which came out of the head originally, but this is just plain zinc coated steel. This is meant to go in like you know, an oil pan or some, you know, something like that. All right, same thread and all that kind of stuff. And then I said, well, maybe I'll consider something else, maybe something that made out of aluminum. And I found this little really lightweight deal here. It looked pretty rinky-dink, and it's just got a hex head or an Allen head in it, and I chose not to use it. And then this one here has the same threads, and it has an O-ring on it, and it looks kind of weird. And this flange is a bit too wide, and that really wouldn't work out as well either. Anyway, the one I have in there looks exactly like that one. It looks exactly like the original ones, except for it is made of stainless steel. So I couldn't find an exact reproduction made out of aluminum, but is what it is. So I put some regular old white thread sealing tape on that one and tightened it down. I didn't tighten it down as tight as I did these. So we're just gonna have to see if this thing's gonna leak on us or not. You know, whenever we fire this engine up, you know, and let it run for the first time, we'll keep the valve cover off and see if we got a drip there. If we do, I will shut her down, and I will back that off, and I'll go ahead and use some kind of JB Weld sealant up inside there, and that should be okay. But I wanted to do a minimal fix, with this stuff, and just see if it's going to work okay. All right, enough of that. Let's move on. So, we've got all our valve train parts here in the little baggies. So, that's number 1 intake. All right. Number 4, oh, that's out of order, isn't it? There we go. Number 1 exhaust. Let's get them in order here. You know what? 1, 2, that's 3, and that's 4. That's all the stuff we need here. We got both the springs. We got the outer and inner spring. We got the little bracket that holds the compensating element here. That's your compensating element. Got your pivot point on there. You got a little bearing. You got the lifter. Rocker arm and all that kind of jazz. Kind of a weird little setup. I have the valve stem seals on order, and they should be here tomorrow. So really, I can't do anything with this until those additional parts come in. So that's where I'm going to leave it for this very short little weekend video. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't do a whole lot of car stuff this weekend because, well, I play hooky. And Carport Forge came down and, well, we played golf Saturday. So there. How about that? Anyway, so the heads need to be washed before I start assembling them. That's going to mean just soaking them down with super clean, water hose, and then put the air hose to them to dry them off. And then, after the parts come in tomorrow, I can start assembly. But if I wait and add that to this video, it'll be another week. So I figured I would get this little short video out to you guys anyway. And so yeah, anyway, that's all for now. I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy restoring your classic Mercedes. Found this thing in a bar. I found it in a bar. The car was having a drink, and I wanted a soda pop, and it just wouldn't. Anyway.